It's October. Welcome to Trading Growth and Value Stocks. My name is James Boyd. Alongside with me is my good redhead friend, Connie Hill, in the chat. We welcome all of you here as well. We got BJ, Jack, WW, Life in the Fast Lane, Dom, Ocean Life, Scott, Luck, Aloha back to you, and many others. Welcome to all. I cannot believe we're actually saying October, but it's here. Those leaves are coming down. Speaking of actually changing the trend, we'll talk about that green shirt potentially here in just a moment. And just remember, you can follow Connie, any of us coaches, on X. My handle is at James Boyd CS. I do post educational content throughout the day. Connie does as well, so check out her handle. She'll post that in the chat. Just real quick as we get started here, remember the information is provided for general informational purposes only. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of research. Also remember, so when we talk about our examples here today, we're going to look at the fundamentals plus the technicals and try to put some trade examples together and also look at some past examples. Remember that the paid money software is provided for educational purposes only. Even if you're live trading, trading real money, doesn't necessarily mean you can't use paid money. You can have both up at the same time. And so just want to kind of give you a reminder, you can kind of practice certain things before you might consider maybe doing that in real money, okay? So that's a great asset. Just make sure you always remember that. Now also remember that when we talk about if we bring up dividend paying stocks, realize those dividend stocks may reduce or stop paying dividends, and they also could increase the dividend or have a special dividend. More of the story is it's not indefinite. They can change the policy. Also remember that when we talk about investing in general, it involves risk, including loss of principal. Now, quick reminder that coming up, if you go to schwab.com/events, some of the events we like to highlight is right in Bill's backyard at the Chicago Market Drive, October 4th at the Renaissance Schaumburg. That's a one-day event that we're actually doing. Check that out right at schwab.com/events. A two-day event actually right down in Orlando at the Orlando World Center Marriott. A lot of us kind of learn in different ways. Some people like to actually meet online. Some other people say, James, I learn better in person. We'd like to help you with both, okay? That's a two-day event. First day, technical analysis. Second day, option strategies. And then we're going to go out to Anaheim Market Drive, do an Anaheim Market Drive November 22nd. Maybe also celebrate Thanksgiving as well. And also, you're going to see that's right at the Anaheim Marriott. Now, if you're a Schwab client, you could actually just come for free. You're really investing your time, okay? There's not a cost to attend the event. And so we ask you to join us. Go to schwab.com/events. You'll also see other events that we have coming up and also getting into 2026. Now, today we'll talk about kind of where the markets are. Kind of we've kind of been talking about consolidation, flags. Are some of these flags, is the price starting to break out from a consolidation? Now, some of you have already made mention of James can count to three. James can speak different languages, which is all true. Let's actually see if we can't count to three together here today. And let's see if we can't practice some examples. Now, as we do this, I want to kind of talk about maybe what are some, it's not all the same though. Are investors going to growth? Are they going to income? Are they going to value? Where are they going? And what fundamental data can we see and technicals can we actually see for that maybe conclusion of what's ongoing now? Now, what I want to do is let's kind of just pull up just really quick a list, and then we'll look at the charts. So when we look at, let's say, the Dow Jones, and by the way, someone asked me the other day, hey, could you make this font a little bit bigger? Yeah, sure. Go to the very top right. And the reason why I have it kind of the way it is just for the trend columns. Go to the top right, go to setup, go to application settings. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And by the way, it just kind of depends upon the size of your screen, your eyes, things like that. But I'm going to go down to look and feel for just a moment. Let's go to larger. And if we do that, we'll go to apply. Okay. Now, if we pull this up, and actually, that wasn't too bad on the column spacing, so we'll keep that. Dow Jones, 113. Started a little weaker on weaker economic data, bounced back up. Now, in the last couple of days, we've been in trend 4, 5. We've been talking about since last Monday, kind of that little flagging behavior, okay? And why did it flag? Well, because you ran up so much in the last couple of weeks, plural. Now, if we're seeing kind of we're going back into trend 3, at least as of right now. Now, by the way, the SOX is up, okay? We also see the RUT bouncing back a little bit, also trend 3. NASDAQ actually trend 3. You actually see the S&P trend 3, okay? Now, in that trend 3, that just means the price is really above that 10-period moving average. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know how much you know. If the price is above the 10-period moving average, that's when you actually have momentum and trend to your back at that moment in time. Many investors like that condition. Do you like that condition? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Now, what we actually see is we also see gold hitting a 55-day high. We also see semis hitting a short term and an intermediate high. Shorter term being the 20-day duration of time. 55 being more intermediate. That is also happening on the Dow Jones, on the NASDAQ as well. And it's also on the S&P 500. Now, I mean, I pulled my hair. I don't have any hair, okay? Now, I don't know how many times we've been saying new high, new high, new high, new high. A lot of times, probably maybe our voice is going out, but there's some trends here. Now, remember, you got to think about it. If this class is called Trading Growth and Value, a trader is an investor. They're just trying to take a little portion out of that trend. It's really what they're trying to do. So they're still an investor as well. Now, I want to pull up just real quick sectors just while we're here. Let's go to 3 real quick. Now, this is where we're kind of seeing some differences. It's not all the same. Now, something that kind of stood out pretty big here today was healthcare, okay? AbbVie, other stocks like that. We did not see the movement in UNH. It's still up a little bit, but UNH did not move. We actually see a shorter term and intermediate breakout on healthcare. There's the semis again. We don't need to actually touch on that. On utilities, people think these are boring, but it depends who you're talking to and how much money they have, okay? I mean, what if they had 800,000 in, let's say, income producing type of assets? All of a sudden, not so boring now, is it? Just depends what you have. Now, if you also take a look at, let's say, the technology, same as the stocks, gold we already mentioned, and then there's the S&P. So probably let's label 1 healthcare, 2 is utilities, and we actually see 3 technology. Now, what we're not seeing, okay, communication is down, financials is down, transports are down, industrials down a little bit. So we're are we seeing a little rotation? Kind of seeing a little maybe defensive posturing, but technology is still there. And you got to say gold is up there. You could say that's also kind of like defensive posturing to some degree, okay? Now, we got 1, 2. We don't have a crossover yet, but if someone is a trader where they buy on 1 or they buy on 2, that's really been in the last 36 hours or so, okay? Now, I got to ask you a question. How many of you like to buy on step 1 where the 10-period moving average goes green? How many of you like to buy then? How many of you like to buy on step 2? Okay. Now, right now, if we looked at this, we also see that if we kind of go back and kind of say, well, are we breaking an area of resistance? Now, remember, if you're breaking an area of resistance, what's the chances that the moving average could cross over? The answer, really high. Okay. So you're in step 2 right now. The moving averages are starting to pinch. The higher we get above the 20-period moving average, the greater the chances of actually the crossover. Now, I'm not going to talk about every one of these, but when you look at, let's say, the NASDAQ, I mean, that intraday, and I posted on X, I mean, that is your classic tilted up W pattern. Little fall back down, run back up, fall back down, run back up. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, where have we been, right? I mean, we've seen this 100 times. Now, this kind of goes back to, we've been talking about since last Monday, that flag behavior, right? Well, what's kind of been awkward is this flag didn't last very long. So what does that tell us about momentum? And we've also talked about that. The shallower you actually pull back in terms of percentage, the shorter you pull back in duration, the greater the strength of what? Say it out loud. Momentum and ta-ta-ta, not Tommy, ta-ta-ta, trend. Thank you very much. And so here's the deal, and we kind of mentioned this before, is that there's different places you can park capital, right? And when we talk about, let's say cash products, the rates there are dropping down. Well, I mean, you could still invest in those, okay? If the inflation, for example, is staying kind of maybe still persistently high, the real returns that you're getting, the nominal return, what the stated amount was, less the inflation rate, you're actually kind of getting compressed on that, on cash products. Now, why are people actually getting in equities, E for equities? Why are they getting in, let's say, C for commodities? Simple answer, because there's a trend that's been expanding, okay? So the money tends to go where they think there could be bigger potential upside. All right, that is very important here because we kind of drew that diagram out, but we're kind of seeing more of this, and there's still been a push into those equities, E for equities, C for commodities, and so on. And by the way, there's other things as well. Now, when we also pull up, let's say, just real quick on the sector front, before we look at our first example, I don't know about you, but that might be a breaker resistance. You call it for yourself, okay? I mean, when you're like measuring a first down with one candlestick, there was some movement in that space. Don't ask me a question like, do you think investors are getting in? Okay, Connie can answer that question. All right, Connie, have a little fun with you. Now, what does utilities look like? There's utilities, brand new high, classic V pattern on that. Again, I don't poo-poo the utilities, okay? Because utilities, when you look at utilities, it could also be some of these other stocks in here that are actually helping the crypto space for power. And I think a lot of people just think it's just water and water by itself. No, it could be the electrical power that's running some of these grids of crypto firms, okay? Now, are there any questions? Okay. Now, Clarkson says just real quick, and I want to just kind of speak to this for just a moment, okay? So if you go to this page right here, what you're now going to notice is this is going to be our page on YouTube. You can also go to YouTube by itself, search Trader Talk Schwab Coaching Webcast. Now, right in the middle of the page, you can do the simplest thing ever. Just subscribe. It's free, okay? I mean, what are you waiting for? If you won't click subscribe there, I mean, where are we going to go? Okay, just do it. Okay, it's the simplest thing. That way you can actually get all of our content right here. Now, the other reason why you want to go just do that is you're now going to notice there's, once you subscribe, there's a search feature. So let's say Clarkson's question is there a video that explains the script he's using? Well, if I click on that and just say script James Boyd, okay, so that's not hard. Little search icon there, script James Boyd, click. So it's going to pull up anything that we've talked about, okay, in terms of scripts. Now, there's a couple of them, and this was asked last week as well. But I'm going to kind of just pull up one of those charts or classes that we did that I think is, for example, a really good one. Now, you're going to see that this is not just a one-off time I've talked about this, okay? But there's this one right here. It's here in one view. This is, I mean, if you ask me what's my favorite, okay, it's this one. And I'm just going to share this with you if you don't mind, okay? So let me just share this with you right there, okay? So that wasn't that bad, right? So if I go back to this, what you're now going to see, if I go back to that, let's go back to that home. Now, by the way, this goes towards any question, okay? I would like to learn about XYZ, go to the search, type in what maybe the topic is, maybe you don't have to put in, let's say, James Boyd. You could say, I'd like to learn about the Analyze tab or whatever it is. Type it in, and it filters every video that we've actually done on our YouTube page. So make sure you're kind of realize that. Now, other questions. Now, the comment was, how does one get the layout set up in the Market Watch class? That would also be from that class, because I actually go over that in that class. How do you make that layout? Okay, so check that out. Now, the other question is just real quick. Okay, good. Your comments was on trend and momentum. Speaking of trend and momentum, let's go to just real quick a couple Dow stocks, okay? So we kind of said we like to kind of be following some of these key indexes like Dow 30, NASDAQ 100, SP 100. Couple Dow stocks that kind of stood out. Of course, you got Merck, okay, healthcare. You got Amgen, healthcare. Nike, post-earnings. You got V for their financials. You're actually going to see also IBM, okay, technology. And you see Amazon and Apple. I want to pull up just really quick a couple of these stocks, okay? So we're going to continue to keep an eye on this. Now, we don't want to be the investor that says, you know what, I was watching it, but then I forgot, okay? That would just be horrible if we ever said those words out of our mouth. Well, if we take a look at this, this is kind of one that's kind of right up near the area of resistance. What about setting an alert? Now, this is that non-committal entry for just a moment. Right click. We're now going to go down to where it says create an alert. An alert is just like an alarm clock every day. And so it's just saying, look, wherever we right click on the chart, that price that I right clicked on the chart is 259.72. And what you're now going to notice is if we get at or above, let us know that. When we go back and look at this, and what we talked about on Tuesday is weekly charts. And we said ad nauseum, and I don't mind in saying ad nauseum because we need to hear it ad nauseum. If you have kids, you know that you have to tell them 10 times for them to hear it once. Sadly, I'm 48. I need to hear it multiple times too for it to really sink through the cranium. Now, here's the deal. When we look at, let's say, the patterns that we're seeing here, U patterns, up and handle patterns, W patterns, V patterns, those are continuation patterns. And could they continue? Now, we're not saying they're all going to work out, but the idea is that the bulls are kind of swooped it back up and there's a little push here. Now, when we look at some of the fundamentals of Apple, they just came out with the new phone, etc., and those earnings are really going to be on the 30th. Now, there's a lot of things they're actually doing. They got the phone, they got the watch updates, they got the iPads, they got the MacBook Pros and Airs. A lot of people kind of believe that that could be a refresh cycle where the technology is different to cause people to say, I'm going to consider upgrading, or I'm going to abandon ship of those Samsung products that might not work as well as Apple's. I'm just joking. I want to see who's a Samsung user, and I know you're going to tell me something in just a second. A little fun with you. Just want to make sure you're there. Now, not a recommendation for Apple, but a little, I always like to kind of stoke the crowd there. Now, here's the deal. So we set an alert there. I want to also go back to the other one that we've been watching a little bit, which is the NVIDIA. And if you look at NVIDIA, tell me what you see on NVIDIA here. BJ, what do you see? LH, what do you see? Clarkson, what do you see here? Now, let's kind of take a look at kind of some of the, I want to kind of take a look at some of the fundamentals on some of these companies, okay? Now, here's the thing. When you look at price, you're looking at the history of price, okay? Now, today, we're talking about today, okay? When we look at the volume, we're talking about today. Okay, fine. But when we go back and look at the history of volume, that's the history. You go back and look at the price, that's the history. You go back and actually look at the fundamental data, that's the history, okay? So the only thing we got technically, is just today. But we're not looking at just today to get an idea of what the trend is per se. We're looking at the history. It's the same thing with fundamentals. Now, when we actually pull up, let's say, go analyze real quick. We actually pull this up. This is not going to be the case that when you look at kind of the sales over time, you're going to see that this number over time has slightly gone up to the upside. Slightly. Gone from 526, and it just a couple years ago is at 66 cents. I don't know if that's 8 or 9 times. It's a lot. It's gone from 17 cents to 2.94. Now, what happens is the higher and higher you go, the harder and harder it is to match, okay, the growth that it's been historical. That's true, okay? It's mathematically true. Now, the question is, sometimes what can happen is the company invests, and they're starting to get those returns over time showing up on the balance sheet and the income statement. Now, if we pull this up, what you're now going to notice is we're going to actually take, I'm just going to show this. We have 2 or 3 examples on NVIDIA, but that's one that we've actually done. That's still on and going. Now, I want to go back to just real quick, and by the way, we have Apple too. The one that I do want to pull up is if you look at Caterpillar. Now, Caterpillar, for example, if you look at this as the run-up, a big run-up, a little yank, a pullback, and we're kind of getting a little push to the upside. Now, when you kind of take a look at that, that's kind of like reclaiming the 200% mark. And if we close here, this is the highest close that we've really had for a while, okay? Now, that is also kind of one that's standing out a little bit, okay? And I'm just mentioning a couple of stocks here, okay? The other one that's kind of mentioned that we like to kind of just keep an eye on to see if it can't break to the upside has kind of an interesting pattern, right? Like, I mean, these are all Dow stocks. So don't say, well, how did you make the list? I didn't make the list. I was looking at the Dow 30 stocks. I think you look at all 30 stocks in probably less than 10 minutes, okay? Now, if you look at that, this is one that's kind of still in the apex of the triangle. Could it start to break out? Now, the other thing I want to kind of bring up that I thought was very interesting today was when you look at stocks like Micron, okay? Now, if you look at a stock like Micron, it ran to the upside and it broke the diagonal line. It broke the horizontal line. And this is why investors probably, it's not a good idea to make a watch list every day. Because if you're making a watch list every day, you're not comfortable with them. You don't kind of see what those stocks do on a day in, day out basis, weekly basis. And that was a huge push here today. We're talking about 7%, 8%, who's counting? $13 push just on that one. Now, we're kind of thinking that if Micron goes up, could it drag NVIDIA up? And that's that's the thesis of, it depends who I'm talking to, okay? The biggest actually thing is, could Micron and could LRCX and a couple of these semis push up or drag up NVIDIA? When you actually take a look at Lam Research, a little run up to the upside, pull back. This is classic tilted up W. Ladies and gentlemen, when you see that the down days are only one day down followed by green candle, that is classic signs of momentum, okay? Don't forget that. Now, I want to kind of talk about some examples that I would like to do some examples on. And this kind of really points out why we do top-down analysis, right? If you looked at SOX, the semiconductor industry, and said that's one of the stronger ones, you don't need to actually think that that's on a day-over-day basis going to be changing per se. You find some hot areas and you try to expose or ride those trends. Now, I want to go back to one of the stocks that we're going to look and see, can we do a trade on? We're going to look at the technicals. We're going to look at the fundamentals on this. And if you look at kind of the Palantir, okay, we've been really talking heavily about these cup and handles, okay? Now, what you're now going to notice is we kind of have this little drop down and a little run back to the upside. Now, when you're an artist, you can kind of draw the way you see it. But I think that's pretty fair to say that there's a pretty good cup and handle here. The significance is if it can break above that about 185, could it travel up some of the width of the cup from top to bottom? Could it travel from the bottom to the top, that width? And that width is about 35. Now, if you're a pessimist like I am, you might say, I don't believe that. Okay, I'm realistic. And what you're going to notice is maybe you say, look, if it went half that, I'd be tickled pink. Okay? Well, let's kind of go back and kind of say, well, why are we even looking at this? What is it that they actually do? Well, so what you're now going to notice is they deploy software platforms, okay? Now what you're going to notice is identify patterns within data sets, okay? Kind of sounds like right up our alley here. And now what you're going to notice is if you take a look at this, we go down and look at these numbers down below. This has been a company that over time, when you look at the revenue, and we're talking about the revenue per share, it has not exploded yet like, let's say, NVIDIA did. It has not. Where it has done something different is when you look at these numbers right here, the actual earnings per share. It actually went from being negative to turning profitable, okay? Now, for a lot of investors are saying, look, if you can actually turn profitable and you start actually increasing your sales, all of a sudden investors become interested because they're looking for, let's say, profitable companies. Now, when we say profitable companies, we're actually saying companies that have earnings or earnings per share, same thing. Now, when I actually pull this up, let's go back to this. Now, let's say the investor said, well, I'm going to wait to get in. Okay. Now, could we take a little bit more commitment from that? Could we say, you know what, I'm going to try to get in if we get above above today's high. Now, what we're going to do on this chart is I'm going to right-click on the chart. Now, when we right-click on the chart, what we're going to do, okay, there's Palantir. We're going to right-click on the chart, and now what we're going to say is buy custom with OCO bracket. This is going to be something you're going to use a lot, okay? So get familiar with this. Buy custom with OCO bracket. We have a classic buy order in green, sell order in the second row. Third row is just going to be classic Palantir for the stop. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put the order from a limit to a stop limit. Now, what I want to do is I want to do this order so many times. You say, James, that this used to kind of make me nervous, but I feel pretty comfortable here. What we're going to say is do not get in until we get above 186. That number is based upon where you see resistance and what would constitute for you to be a breakout. Now, this is just going to be the ceiling or the cap in which we're saying, look, that's the most that we're willing to buy the stock. The narrower the band, the lesser the chance you have to get in, okay? So we're saying, look, if we did $1 higher than the buy stop price is, if it gets to that price or higher, get in, but it can only get in to 187. So the narrower that band is, the lesser the chance you have to get in. If we widen that out, greater chance to get filled, okay? So if you said 186.01 and said, James, I only want to have a 1 cent differential, man, you better hope you get it, okay, in the paper money trade, because, I mean, it's only a penny. It's not saying that it's going to fill at 187. It could fill lower than that. It's just saying this is the cap, okay? All right, now, if we take a look at this, I'm going to go back to limit. Now, Pia, where would you put that target? Grant, where would you put the target? If this was your paper trade, where would you set it up? Well, if we kind of went back to this, if we said, okay, now remember, let's say we're pessimists, okay? You're like, yeah, but, okay? Well, if we said 185 was the resistance area, and we added $17 to that, if our math is any good, it's going to give us about 202. Okay, that's if we talk about right from the rim of the cup down to the bottom, 35. We're pessimists, okay? We don't believe anything, believe half. And what you're now going to notice is it'll be $15 above that-ish. It's going to give us right around, let's say, it would be 200 to 202, somewhere in that area. Now, what you're now going to notice over the last couple of days, it's set up a nice little ledge here. The ledge is sitting right at 179. The ledge is sitting right here up about 175-ish or so. And what an area to set a support, set a stop off these support areas in the shorter term. If we said 179.21 less, let's say 2%, 175.62. If we use that, 175.62, there it is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the capital that we normally talk about, okay, and I'm going to look and see how many shares it is. The answer to that is about 40 shares. Not everything is going to be 100 shares. I know we're sad, okay? But we got a target, we got a stop, and there it is right there, okay? Now, what happens a lot of times is we kind of just, every day we're trying to make a new watch list. Be very, very careful when you do that. A lot of times the trends are the ones that are right in front of you on a daily basis inside the Dow 30, NASDAQ 100, and the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, etc. We kind of overlook it. It's not a problem of a list. It's a problem of identifying a setup, and number two, taking action in the paper trade to practice the setup. And it's also taking away that all trades need to work. We know some of them are going to be wrong. We know that, okay? Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do in this case, let's go ahead and send this order. Let's kind of look at this. Remember how the stop works. We're saying if it goes to that, down to that price or less, sell the stock. The target and the stop, those are not valid until the order is until it's bought. So those sells are pending. The order has to fill first. So if we said GTC, this could last for a couple of months, or we could specify a length of time where we're saying, hey, maybe give it a week. If it fills in a week, could we say, look, could you just say, let's go to the gear there, click on the gear, so I don't forget or anything like that. Could I just say, look, let's cancel this next week, same time next week. And if we push this to the 8th, you got 1 week to break out. You either break out or you're going to get canceled, okay? Save the order, confirm send, fire in the hole. Fire. Now, if we take a look at that, it's just sitting right here. Now, again, I think the orders, when you kind of think about that buy stop limit, that's a very important order to practice. So if you're seeing, let's say, potential bounce setups, you're seeing breakout setups, that you're saying, I don't want to get in yet, but it's actually starting to set up, having an understanding of this order, number one, and then the alert is critical, okay? Now, I want to kind of also look at a couple other stocks that are kind of standing out a little bit. Last, I think it was Tuesday, we talked about diagonal lines of resistance. We even talked about some of these stocks that were, for example, kind of showing maybe an inverse head and shoulder. That right side kind of got two shoulders, but what you're now going to kind of notice is, and again, we don't need a new list on a daily basis, that was really your breakout, one down day, followed by a gap to the upside, data dog getting a little push. Now, the thing I want to kind of point out on data dog itself, go back to the analyze on this, data dog, okay? Go back to analyze. We take a look at kind of where this company is coming from. It's the same idea as Palantir. It's a company where the revenue has actually gone up a lot more in the last 5 years or so, a lot more than Palantir, but it's a similar type of setup where over time it's turned profitable, okay? Now, BJ actually said that I wanted this, but I ran out of capital. That's fair, and that can happen. And I kind of posted about that on X here. It's not funny here, but this, BJ, if you were here, it happens. And then that is honestly, we could say, hey, the worst thing about investing is getting stopped out or things like that. It might be the worst thing in what you're saying. Okay, seeing the opportunities, but then you feel like, hey, I'm tied up in other setups. That can feel tough. Okay, now I just want to kind of make mention of one other stock here. One other stock we're going to kind of keep an eye on is CEG. Now, CEG, for example, if we go to analyze and say, what does it do? Well, you got to remember it's Constellation Energy. And what you're now going to notice is it's in 5 segments all over the U.S. And you're now going to see that it offers electricity, natural gas, energy-related products. And you're going to see that there are all kinds: nuclear, wind, solar, nat gas, hydroelectric assets. And so if you take a look at this has been one that's kind of had a crazy turn here in terms of its earnings. This is also one that kind of seems to maybe be puckering up. We go back, now why do I bring this up? Well, because we talked about that cup and handle, and if we look at that weekly chart, because I gave you the homework to do that, it kind of has like your classic little run to the upside, yank back right there. You kind of draw it all the way over to the right. There's your crossover. This is for this week, okay? Now, sometimes people don't like just tech stocks left and right. They want maybe some companies that might kind of have more sticky type of maybe products, like electrical, where they need them and it's not as maybe cyclical, okay? So that's another one we're going to kind of keep an eye on. Now, the other one I want to kind of just pull up just briefly, see our CrowdStrike. Let's hold this to the weekly chart, okay? When you look at the weekly chart, that's your classic flag setup, bouncing off the 10-week. You're also going to notice when you look at, let's say, Zscaler, that is one that's kind of in the process of still cupping, where it yanked back, pull back, okay, and it's still riding the 10-period moving average, which is the foundation for a bullish setup, okay? Now, I want to also go into one, and then we're going to look at the one we're going to do a trade on, okay? One that's, speaking of weekly charts, okay, coming back to what we talked on Tuesday, when you look at, let's say, in Monday, is when you look at Dash, that is a crossover on a weekly, okay? Now, the biggest thing is when it crosses over on a weekly, how do we know it's going to go up? We don't. this is like playing baseball. It looks like it's a strike. You swing at it, but you're not guaranteed to hit it. Even if you hit it, you don't know if it's going to be a ground ball. You get on first base, second base, third base. You don't know if it's going to be a home run. You don't know if it's going to be a grand slam. You're just trying to get in and try to see how long that trend potentially could go for, okay? Now, when you pull up Dash, the other thing we want to kind of say here, I think a lot of people might not fully understand maybe what they really do, but the significance is this is another business that's kind of turned positive. Now, at one point, Tesla was negative, and they were negative for a long time, but some of these companies, once they turn positive, they can start to really create those intermediate, potentially long-term trends. Keep an eye on Dash. The other one I'm going to kind of make mention, I'll just point up just briefly, is Hood. Now, I don't know if you watched. Did anybody watch this? Did anybody watch in the last 2 days? It went from what? 120? It went to 143 in 2 days. So it was like what? A 23-point move? And even if the investor said, James, I didn't get the bottom, I didn't get the top, but maybe there was 11 in there somewhere. That's what the trader is trying to do, okay? And so that's one that we've kind of been talking about from a technical standpoint, but when you look at the fundamentals of that, you're going to see it's the same type of pattern. A company that was unprofitable, turning profitable. Now, when you actually go back and look at the quarterly, we can actually see what the quarter is. In the 25, Q2, Q1, Q4 of 24, etc., those numbers, they're staying positive, at least in the recent history. Now, this is where you could also kind of go back and kind of say, well, what is the forecast that the company is doing? Now, forecast doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, but they have some indication of what it might be potentially, okay? And that's something that we're going to kind of keep an eye on, but just want to kind of point that out. Now, the one that we are going to show is really the MSFT. Why? Well, because if you look at MSFT, this has really been a company that's had a prior high yanked back. And if we kind of said on this chart, where do we see the area of resistance? I mean, so when you go back and look at Hood or some of these other stocks, it's like, well, yeah, they're already at the high. Not that they can't go higher or lower. But wonder if they kind of they've made the base, and wonder if we're kind of wondering, are they starting to crack above that consolidation area? Hallelujah. Okay, now we don't know if it's going to do that. We don't know, okay? But now when you take a look at this on the right-hand side, we kind of see a little pattern of higher lows. Now, you're going to kind of notice something on the right-hand side. There's also like this seaport, which kind of matches the resistance. Now, we're wondering, could it actually try to break the 517, and could it maybe move up to 532? Could it move up to, let's say, 538? Could it move actually up to, let's say in this case, 555? Think of these as shorter-term potential target or target areas where it might try to go to. Now, what I'm going to do in this case, I want to go back to analyze for just a second. We got MSFT there. We pull it up and say, what do we got going on here? Okay? Now, remember, when we take a look at kind of trends in general, it's like light, okay? And the lighter that revenue and the earnings per share gets, the lighter it becomes, the stronger it gets, the more it might attract other investors, and also, by the way, with other types of investors, short-term, days, maybe weekly investors, maybe quarterly, monthly investors, etc. You look at these numbers actually over time, a pretty steady, and that's actually something else to kind of point out here. A lot of investors, they don't like something where it's just all over the place. There's no persistence of that smoother revenue. And if it's not smoother revenue, then it makes it very difficult to kind of see what the earnings per share is or could be, because it's ping pong balling all over the place. And by the way, that could also really affect, does the company feel comfortable in continuing to pay the dividend and or committing to an ongoing dividend. That's kind of important, okay? So notice the businesses that we're talking about here, they're all kind of like a little different. You look at a company like Microsoft, it kind of seems more like a monopoly, if you will, just smooth, okay? And you're going to see in this case, it kind of seems that they're building market share or selling products that are getting decent traction. As the number goes up there, but it's not just that they're selling a lot more per share, you're also going to see that it's hitting that bottom line as well compared to the last couple of years. It's about doubled, okay? Which is pretty hard to do considering where they were to begin with. Now, what I'm going to do is on our last trade, what we're going to do is we're going to buy the shares of the stock, okay? Right-click, buy custom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a target, and if you don't mind, I'm going to set that target right about 555. So when we put the target there, we don't know if it's going to go there. We're just going to put a target there. We're going to see if it can go there. Now, if we went back and say, kind of where do we see this recent diagonal support? It's right around about 511. Take 511 or so, less 2% or so. That's going to get us to about 500. So when you actually take a look at this $500.78, dated GTC. Now, I'm at my time limit here, but the biggest actually thing is if someone's going long Microsoft, they're probably thinking that the NASDAQ is going to continue to go up. They probably think, let's say, that the servers are probably going to do well, software is going to do pretty well, and so on and so on and so on. They wouldn't be buying Microsoft if they actually thought technology was going to be selling off, of course. Clearly, okay? Now, I'm out of my time here today, but our example trades that we did here today, when we go back to monitor, we go back to filled orders, we can look at that first. The orders that we worked on is Microsoft, Palantir, okay? And we also mentioned a couple other stocks like Apple, Nvidia, Micron, okay? CrowdStrike, Zscaler, Hood, Dash, and Microsoft. I would like you to go out and practice looking for these cup and handle type patterns. I would also like you to, for example, practice using buy, stop, limit orders. Okay? How many orders would you like me to practice? Answer, 2 to 3 minimum. Wonder if I don't do it? Well, you get an F on the homework. Okay? So you want to go out and practice it that way you feel more comfortable. And this is really the purpose of actually doing paper trading. And you could actually just practice, okay? So with that said, I'm out of my time here today. Now I'll be back on tomorrow with Trading the Trend. You can also, for example, realize that you can go right to where it says Learn, go right to Schwab Coaching, and you can actually see other sessions that we do, live webcasts and virtual workshop. I'll send this link out if you don't have this, and you can see other classes that we're going to be teaching later today. Here we are on Wednesday. We actually have, in this case, pull this up. Mike Fairborn will teach market sector analysis, and then that'll be right after this. And you're going to see that coming back on tomorrow, next classes, and I'll teach this class, okay? And you're going to notice if we go forward, there's Connie teaching short verticals. So join us on those other classes. They're live and recorded. Now remember, with what we discussed here today, it was done for example, illustrative purposes only. Gave you a homework assignment. Make sure you go out and practice that. Also check out the events right on our schwab.com events page. Join us live in person. And also remember, with what we discussed, it was done for example, illustrative purposes only. Stay tuned for Michael Fairborn coming up next, and don't forget to subscribe. Simple thing to do. Smash it. And with that said, have a great day. I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.